Hey, what's going on YouTube? Just your boy Ant, right? Decisions, man. Just wanted to holla at y'all again on Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Just hanging out, whatever. Today we're gonna talk about Juneteenth, man. Like it's coming up in a couple of days. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there in the streets. Belated Father's Day on Sunday. But just want to talk about Juneteenth. It's like it's coming up. And with all like the craziness going on with like the protests and immigration, all this other craziness going on, I was just like, just let's talk about something that is of some significance. I understand like the velocity, the I can't even get the words out, but just the whole flow of like how America is flowing right now. Like prices are going up on everything. Everything is costing more. Cars are costing more. That's the last week topic. We was talking about car payments, stuff like that. So like cars are going up more. All this stuff is happening. You got all these protests. ICE out there. Getting people, deporting people, and stuff like that. But that's probably like a whole nother conversation. But we're gonna talk about Juneteenth. Just want to let you know, like views and opinions expressed in this video are entirely my own. Like it's not intended. It's intended solely for informational and entertainment purposes. Um, like this does not reflect any stance or endorsement or anything like that. All right, viewers, y'all encouraged, conduct your own research and form your own independent opinions. Like to be honest, right? This Anthony again. Welcome to my channel. Please like, comment, share, hit that notification bell so we can stay connected, have conversations, have deep conversations about anything, any topic. That's why I'm kind of starting off with to, I hit something that's kind of like a niche, something I can really dive in on. But Juneteenth is something that I have celebrated before, a couple of times here and there, a couple of my friends and stuff like that. But it hasn't been something I really like learned about or tried to learn about. I learned about it, but it was kind of like, it wasn't really that serious. I was just like, all right, whatever. Because I was just kind of irritated with the fact that it was like you get a holiday, but it was like, it was slaves still in Texas like 2 years after the emancipation. Like it was just so you had to send soldiers down there to tell people they didn't even know they was still enslaved. So I was just kind of pissed. I was just kind of like, that's kind of jacked up, and we're still like having a holiday that's kind of building this pain and this like long suffering of slaves and enslaved people, slaves, enslaved people, however y'all want to put it. And it's just ridiculous. I just think like these holidays are rebuilding pain. Like pretty much, our ancestors pretty much built this country on their backs, free labor and all that stuff like that. So it's kind of jacked. So we, kind of go a little history of what Juneteenth is and kind of how break down some of that stuff is. It's like put in a law, February, the federal law in 2021. Excuse me. And saying like in a few, I celebrated a few times since then. But I haven't been really big on Juneteenth. I understand like what it is, but it's kind of like, bruh, like it's like we're celebrating something because y'all gave us a notice late. Like y'all give us a notice. Like I know back in the day, get information around was kind of hard, But I feel like when Fourth of July came around, they got freedom, whatever. They got the information out very quickly. So just understand what that greed was and how they still wanted to enslave us, how they still want to keep us here. And I'm thankful for Juneteenth. I'm thankful for emancipation, all those things that happened because I know we're further along than we probably would have been if the Confederates probably would have won, or maybe Europeans would have came into power to help out that situation, whatever. Right? So, June 19th, 1865, right? They went down there, announced, all the slaves were free, 2 years after emancipation. So it's like one of the oldest known holidays. First they was celebrating in Texas, and then 2001 they made it a federal holiday. Once again, like I said before. So we kind of break down how I kind of gave some of the attention, whatever. So I mean, to be honest, right? So, systematic racism, however your feelings are. Like some of y'all don't believe in systematic racism. Sometimes some of y'all don't even believe racism exists. Like some of y'all still say y'all don't see color, right? Some of y'all still say white lives matter, like all this other stuff, because Black Lives Matter was saying some stuff. Then now y'all was like, oh, white lives matter and blue lives matter, like all this stuff matters. So everybody matters, I guess, in a way. So y'all want to, right? So Black Lives Matter came out. It was kind of like this police brutality stuff going on. No, it's been up and down every other year or something like that. Somebody either get killed by the police, and then like it's white against black, black against white. It's kind of like that whole situation is going down. So we was like, okay, right? So 2020, you know, George Floyd situation where there's a video, knee on his back, knee on his neck, whatever the case may be, he died. So that was like a big thing. So then President Biden, former President Biden, signed a bill, back in 2021. And it is what it was, right? So it's right. So then, companies, businesses, took that advantage of that, started making sales and stuff like that. We don't see it as much now, 2025. I think it's just because of all of the issues and drama and all the stuff that we are dealing with, outside of Juneteenth. It's not really being pushed. And then with the, removal of some of these companies for like DEI, stuff like that. So you don't see a lot of like, black businesses and black products and stuff like that. Targets, for example, anymore. You don't see stuff like that. So, and then it's like they don't really teach, they didn't really teach Black history in school anyway. 'Cause I know I had to wait to go to college to even take a college course like African American Studies. Like that's the only time I really could take it, whatever. So it's like it's not really a lot of stuff is not really accurate, but it being having Juneteenth is kind of a reminder to let us know where we were and how better we are now than we was before, right? So I just feel like the holiday ended up becoming like a federal holiday, just it kind of to appease black people at the time because we had all that turmoil, we had all the protests, all this stuff going on, and it was like, oh, we just give you a holiday, and it's like, okay, we get a holiday for you, for people back in the day telling us late in the game that we were free, so it's kind of like, bruh, what are we talking about? And I'm just like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not really feeling it. I think it's, I feel like I'm not feeling it. Like, you know what I'm saying? They just do stuff. Like, I think government sometimes just does stuff too. Sometimes. It's just to appease black people at some points. So that's why I think a lot of black people are really not, jumping in on these protests and stuff like that because I just feel like if we get into it, it's like we either get blamed for it or they're gonna try to point out that we're involved in some kind of looting or whatever the case may be. And that may be true in some cases or whatever, but I think we need to stay back because if we get in there, we're gonna be a part of that. So if we're there destroying cars or whatever, we're gonna be a part of that stuff like that. So back to Juneteenth. So back to that situation. So we're breaking this up down. So it's like, so if you like what you see so far, you like everything, like please like, comment, share, hit the notification bell. Like if I miss anything about Juneteenth, if I'm missing points, like it's a small topic, but it's a big topic because there's certain things that led up to it and everything. So it's kind of like we're trying to break all this stuff down because it led up to it. So we gotta figure out like what's going on. And y'all gonna work with me, right? Because I don't edit my videos. I'm sorry. I just don't got the time for it. I'm a grown back at kids, so like I really got time for it. And you just gonna get the natural, raw, uncut me. So I might run on and I might talk too much or whatever. And, do you? Well, I still love you. I hope you stay, you like, you share, you comment, hit that notification bell so we can link up, have these conversations, and then as I go along, as I get better in this YouTube verse, then I can speak better and do all these things better, right? So my videos be more concise, and then I can start editing some of my videos. So y'all can be like, all right, he cleaning up a little bit, like get get my lighting better. You know what I'm saying? So if I can get to a point where I can, make a little money, then I could help all the stuff like that. But I help a brother out, right? So this is what I'm saying, right? So we gonna look at it this way, right? So why Juneteenth, right? Conversation people, right? Right, people. Conversation with people before we get slave, right? Before we, I mean, it's like as a Black American, African American, I'm torn because my ancestors, right, generations before me, right, even my dad grew up in Jim Crow South, right, Wood York. He was like around 18 in 1966, right. I can only imagine his childhood was like in rural Georgia, like he in Georgia, like I think south of Atlanta or something around there, right in the 1960s. Like I can't even imagine what he had to do with, like colored, sinks and like only could get food, for the back of the thing. Like you had to go to the back. You couldn't eat in the restaurants. Like all these things, like he probably had to grow up and deal with, and knowing like, if he crossed the street or if he whatever, a white person, whatever it did, he probably could end his life. He could probably be dead. So I'm thankful, that he played it cool and he didn't get into no mess. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. So we gonna start with the Emancipation Proclamation, right? That's kind of led up to us being free. I understand like y'all, everybody got their griefs about former President Abraham Lincoln. Y'all got y'all grief. I get it. Like his intentions and all that stuff probably really like on the up and up, but at the same time, like I'd rather us be free than be still like or still been enslaved like in the early 1900s or something like that. Like we could have still been enslaved or whatever, right? If he didn't make some of these moves, regardless of whether or not you know he felt we should have been in the country or not, or whatever the case may be, right? So first, January 1st, 1863, around that time, he declared slaves in Confederate held territory to be free, right? Like it's a wartime thing, right? Right? It's not a final violation about I can't even freaking talk, man. It's not a final thing, right, to end slavery nationwide, right? But it's like it's kind of getting the ball rolling, right? So he proposed it, right, early July 1862, right? Many cabinet secretary, right, were apathetic, right, were worried, right, that it was like he was too radical, like he was out here just doing whatever, right? But he felt he was like a necessity, right, because he wanted to win the war, right? They had a, victory, basically it was a tie, right? It's Antietaf. I'm sorry, right? My pronunciation is trash, man. I need to work on it. I'm gonna give me a book to help me with that. But it's trash, right? So I was like, if sometimes I get tongue tied and I say some, I don't even want to spell it wrong, right? It was a war, right? So it kind of persuaded the whole formation of them, supporting, backing them up. Okay, right? So he first proposed it in July 1862, right? Right, Senator, Secretary of State like William Seward, right? He suggested like, we should wait for a victory, right? So he can kind of prove your situation and enforce it. So he can enforce the proclamation, right? Although, right, what I'm saying, the battle, right, it resulted in a draw, right? But the Union Army was able to drive the Confederates out of Maryland, right? Enough for victory, right? So that felt comfortable for him to throw that emancipation, right? 5 days later, right? So up until September 1882, right, the main focus, right, was to preserve the Union, right, with the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation. Freedom for slaves now became a legitimate war aim, right? So basically, right, first he was like, hey, I'm gonna free some slaves, right, so I could preserve the Union, right? And then it was like, oh, bruh, right? To preserve it, he was warring to preserve the Union. But now he was like, oh, okay, let me free some slaves, right? So now it came a legitimate war aim, right? So he can weaken the Confederate, right? So he doing stuff like that, right? Weaken the thing, right? So it's stipulated, right? So the southern states, right, is saying, hey, September 20th, 1862, right? Stipulated southern states to cease their rebellion, right, by January 1st, 1863, right, or the proclamation will go into effect, right? So when the Confederacy was like, nah, we not having this, y'all good, right? Lincoln issued the final Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, right? Again, right? It declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states or shall be free. So he was saying, hey, look, I'm freeing all the people, right, that's in the rebellion states. That's his Confederates. I'm freeing all the people from all them people. That's what I'm freeing, right? It was more like a military necessity, right, to weaken the Confederacy, right? It was used as a military thing to weaken the Confederacy, right? Not a stance of like, okay, I want to end slavery. He was like, oh, bro, I'm just trying to keep the Union in place and weaken Confederacy, right? Not necessarily to free us, right? Because basically the prophecy did not free all the slaves, right? It only applied to slaves in the bordering states, right? That's like Kentucky, Maryland, Missouri, Delaware, right? It solely depended on the Union winning. So if they didn't win, right, we don't know where we was gonna be at, right? So I understand like people back in the day, like people like man, Abraham Lincoln, like why are we trying to give this dude all this credit? But I mean, he did something, right? Now the way he did it, we don't have to agree on that. Yes, I really don't care. I just know that I can walk around here free. Ain't nobody trying to get me. You know what I'm saying? Like, now, there's some things like systematic racism, some things that's going on in this world, right? That we still got to deal with, like microaggressions, all that stuff like that. At the end of the day, we can go about our business. We got freedom of religion. We got freedom of these things, right? So we can still work and be successful, stuff like that. Like, now the unity thing is part still we need to work on, but we still can work on these things and be, and be better, right? So, and then also, right, the Europeans, right, they didn't really care for slavery, but they still wanted to regain power and kind of like put their pressure on us, right? So the Emancipation Proclamation also helped, right, prevent involvement from foreign nations in the Civil War, right? Because they were still trying to come back, right? They have Fourth of July, right? They're freeing themselves, and they're like, oh, wow, we can come and help. Yeah, so we could gain some of that power back. So they were just trying to get it. So it kind of limited them from coming back and getting in there, right? So, but since the Union had a somewhat a victory and was weaker than the Confederacy, right? The Europeans and the side was like, bro, we not even gonna get involved. So they kind of like it's a lost cause, so they stepped back, right? They didn't want to intervene. They didn't want to really mess with it, right? Right. So basically, right, the proclamation marked a crucial step. Like it's a step, right? Ending slavery, right? Influence public opinion, right? And then ultimately leading to the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery nationwide, right? So the emancipation kind of like helped the path to go where it needs to go so the 13th Amendment can come around, right? Right? So at the end of the day, there were good intentions. There were definitely bad intentions, right? For freeing the slaves, right? First, it was like, hey, bro, we're gonna free y'all because we want to weaken the Confederacy. We're just trying to preserve the Union, right? I mean, they even said Abraham Lincoln at one time was like, he really was just trying to get rid of us, right? And just move us to back that, right in Africa somewhere, whatever the case may be, out of America, so like that. But before all that stuff could really go down, he literally just, you know, he ended up getting assassinated, right? So yeah, that's a whole nother topic. That's a whole nother topic, right? So maybe so we in Juneteenth, right? So slavery was still going, like just like I said before, like slavery was still going on in Texas, right? 2 years later, June 19th, right? A Union general, right? 2,000 soldiers or so, right? Issued a general order, right, officially declaring, right, that all the slave people in Texas are now free. I don't even know what the mindset these people were with. They just came in and was like, hey, man, y'all free. And you know what? Y'all been free for like the last 2 years. The word just didn't get to you. Like, you know what I'm saying? You don't even know where yet. I think they probably was just still like in this enslaved mentality, so they probably didn't even know how to really process it. You know what I'm saying? Because they wasn't really let people read or anything like that. So it was like pretty much about word of mouth. So they wouldn't let people really read like that. So they probably had a few slaves that could read that was like in the house or something like that. But other than that, most majority of them wasn't really reading English and nothing like that, right? So now we're gonna look at like how it became like it's a celebration, right? It's a legacy, like a slavery. It's a about the ongoing struggle of civil rights. It's about the resilience of African American community, right? And it's like it still bothers me. Like it still messes with me because it's like we gotta reflect on the legacy of slavery. Right? It's like it's pain. It's like it's hurt. It's rape. It's destruction. Is free labor. Is killings. Is massacres. Like and it's like I think when I'm thinking of legacy is like I'm leaving something to my children. I'm leaving them good morals and good things like that. So that's when I think of legacy. I'm leaving them wealth. I'm leaving them something behind to help them better the next generation. But when I hear like that's what I hear legacy, but it's like legacy of slavery. It's like right, legacy of slavery. I'm kind of I don't know what that is, right? Because we still are dealing with even today, 2025. We still dealing with like and economic disparities, right? Racial injustice, right? And health, education, right? We still have ongoing debates, whether that's in the news or not, about citizenship and civil rights, right? Even immigrants, right? They're fighting for citizenship. They're fighting for U.S. citizenship. They're fighting for their way in and trying to stay in and stuff, whatever the case may be, right? They want to come to America, right? Right. And it's kind of like, it's not positive. It does not like benefit us. Like it's maybe I'm tripping. Like y'all in the comments, whatever. Let me know. Like maybe I'm tripping. I don't know, right? And then it's like ongoing struggle, right? So we still have an issue with civil rights. We still have all these things, right? And it's so implied. Like why is it still like I'm googling all this stuff, like so this is information I'm getting. I'm like it doesn't feel right. And it said the resiliency of Africa, like so we still gotta struggle, we still gotta endure, we still gotta go through all this pain and sorrow, all this other stuff. And I'm just like, I'm not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it. Maybe I'm tripping, but like, I just did Juneteenth, like I get it, but it's like, bro, like why we celebrate pain so much all the time? It's like we already gotta deal with mess every single day, all the time. Now it's like, oh, Juneteenth, we just gotta remember the fact that, oh yeah, y'all took 2 years to let us know. 2 years to let us know what was going on. And it just doesn't make sense. I just don't get it. I don't like it, right? But if you like the video so far, man, I'm remind you, right? Like, comment, share, hit the notification bell for the next video, and let's come together and make something right there, right? Help me, right? Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm delusional, right? I don't understand why we celebrate it. Like I understand remembering like our day of freedom. Like, even 4th of July is something I'm just like I'm not sure, but that's probably a whole nother video. That's probably like a whole nother situation and another talk or whatever. Because it's like I know we got other holidays, right? It's just like Columbus Day really don't make sense. Like it's just like it doesn't make sense. Like I know some people argue like, oh yeah, he helped us get over here and stuff like that, but he discovered it now. Like everybody got their own arguments and debates about that, right? But I don't think Columbus Day should be holiday. I don't think what is that? Like you didn't discover America, you didn't land here. There's people here before you got here. The French got here before Columbus. Like if you know your history a little bit, like it was other European countries that got here way they got over here way before Columbus, and he even touched what we call America today. So it's crazy. Like it was like yeah, it's like in my opinion, right? It's just like you're in a house, right? And a person keeps coming and stealing from your house and stealing from your house and stealing from your house, right? And then they finally come up with the idea like, oh, I don't think I should steal from them. I don't think that's right to steal from them. And but every once in a while they still steal from you. And then all of a sudden 2 years later they're like, no, I'm not gonna steal from you. I don't need no more. I steal from them, but I'm not stealing from as much. So this is what I'm going to do. I then they put a statue out in front of that person who steal from you, but he's still constantly stealing from you, but not as much steal from you. So it's kind of like, am I tripping? If I tripping, like maybe I'm not using the right example. I might not be using the right example. If I tripping, because I'm just saying like that's what Juneteenth is. It's like it's to remind you like, oh, yeah, we enslaved your tail and we took it upon ourselves, especially in Texas, not even to tell you that you was free. We was like, we gonna keep the ball rolling until somebody come there. And general and soldiers literally had to come there and be like, bro, you free now. You free. And it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm black, right? I know, man. I know. And I got locks too, so you know it's like somebody might be looking at me crazy because it's like, oh, he got locks, whatever the case may be. Lock family, where you at? Where you at, lock family? Where you at, lock family? I see you. I see you. Where you at, lock family? Right? Y'all should be liking this shit. I'm about, go. I got a little rough rate. I'm about to get about P-Twist, this weekend or whatever, and get a little cleaned up, what I'm saying, or whatever. Anyway, let me get on my soapbox, right? So I mean, it's like, I, you know, I'm going to go left a little bit with this like this, right? I do really, like, I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood until I was about like in fifth grade, so probably about 11. It was predominantly black neighborhood, right? We had an adjacent neighborhood that was majority white. So we happened to move from that black neighborhood probably in 5 or 10 minutes into the other city, right? So we used to get like hate mail, and I think I was 12 years old. Probably we like stayed in that neighborhood till I was probably like about 17, and I think I heard the the hard R more than I can remember. Like I heard it so much, like it was to the point where like I wouldn't even offend it no more. I was just numb to it because it was just I was there. We used to get hate mail, talk about go back to places like and we didn't. I literally moved like 5-10 minutes away from where I live. That's how crazy it was. It was like a black neighborhood, and then it was like a white neighborhood next to it. And like I moved there, and it was calling N words, everything. It was crazy. I was out the neighborhood. We had one other black person right when I started going to middle school. We had like one black person, and I used to kind of like walk him home because these white boys literally like they just knew me, so they didn't bother me because I was like I didn't get no trouble. I wasn't messing with them cats like or whatever because like a whole like we used to fight all the time. Like when I was in sixth grade, we used to fight. But when I got to like middle school, right, they just saw me in the neighborhood. They ain't really mess with me because like I was just scrapped. Like I scrapped. Like I just had no time for it because it was like it was only sometimes you can chase me home. So I was gonna be pointing like I'm just gonna fight 5 or 6 people, win or lose, it is what it is, right? So it's crazy. But even in 2025, right, the sun, invisible sun, right? We out here in these streets, right? And he said like an N word in class, right? But the teacher assumed that he said it with the hard R. And she says the email, the great thing, she says the email. That's great. She says the email with the words in it, in quotations. And we sat down and was like, what's going on? Like, why would she need to say something like that? And she was like, oh, well, since she said it in quotations, it was okay for her to do it. And it's like, and she sat there and stood 10 toes down. And I'm like, wow, it's 2025. And I'm at the point where I'm not even surprised anymore. I'm not even surprised. I'm not even surprised. So I just try to stay. I must keep my head down. Like I keep my head up and I walk around. But at the end of the day, like I stay out of the way of people, bro. Like I ain't got time for it, right? I don't do anything that even look like it's gonna be criminal. I just can't do it because it's like, what's the point? Like I just don't. I don't even want police to do their job. And what I mean by this, I want to be so way far from crime that I, they can't do their job where I be because I'm not gonna be involved in it. I'm just not. Like I avoid like it's not. I don't hate police and like that. Like police, police are needed, whatever the case may be, right? But I avoid them at all costs. I do my best not to break a law, like not to really speed, not really. So I make sure I change lanes properly. I get my blinker. Like I just make sure I do what I gotta do. I don't need to get pulled over by the police. Like I don't need to get pulled. Like I make sure my tax is good. I make sure my license thing is fitted. I make sure my insurance is good. Like I just make sure I'm good to go because I just want to give nobody a reason to do their job. I want to do my job well, I, and I want them to do their job well. But as long as they involved with me, I'm good. But they be on my soapbox. But I just want y'all to like, share, ring the bell, cool. Help a brother out, right? So I get some more equipment. You know what I'm saying? I get some more equipment, get some more lights, some ring lights, right? I get like a voice coach or whatever y'all got going on. Help a brother out. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like all of this stuff is going on. Like, so we got Juneteenth coming up. You know, this is the summer, right? I don't know. Did the summer start already? I don't know. Summer started already. Anyway, right? It's getting hot in these streets, and it's like Juneteenth is coming up and all that good stuff. Like I said before, I keep repeating myself over and over. But anyway, right? So basically, like I didn't really start studying like 2000, 2024. 2001 and 2024, that's when kind of Juneteenth really started popping because of, just protests and George Floyd dying and all this other stuff like that. It's really celebrated. It was like, oh, there was, having these, black clothing designers. They was put them in stores and they had all this stuff in Juneteenth. Like now, it's 2025. Man, I just walked through a Target. I just walked through a Target and they had the rainbows. They had clothes and stuff with the rainbows and all stuff like that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The rainbows, they had all stuff like that. But I didn't see nothing representing Juneteenth. I ain't see that one thing. And maybe I saw something, maybe I didn't. But I be trying to get in and out of Target anyway. I don't even be trying to be a Target like that anyway. I just get what I need to get up out of it. Don't don't judge me. I know some of y'all boycott the Target or whatever, but sometimes I just need to go in there and get something because it's like it ain't too many things close to me that where because Target got groceries, they got pretty much everything, so it ain't too many places where I can go get stuff, whatever. I'm gonna figure that out anyway, right? So I'm just letting you know, right? Right. I'm not speaking for all black people. I'm not speaking for all of that, right? I'm just using what I experienced and my examples and how I roll, right? And it's all personal experiences, right? I have personal experiences with racism, inequality, microaggressions, etc. Right? But it's too much to dive in. Like it's a lot. Like I just think like we gotta understand like it's 1% of us. You know what I'm saying? It's like I, as a black person, right, may deal with some of the same experiences other black people, right? But at the same time, like I have my own experiences, right? I grew up in a black neighborhood. I grew up in an all-white neighborhood, right? And those were the two races that I interacted with 99% of the time. Now, it was a little bit Middle Eastern here, a little Asian here, you know, a little Latino, Spanish here and there, but it was rare and a few. It was just majority white and it was black for the most part, right? And those are the interactions I have. So like those are kind of experiences I have. But growing up, being in the military, being moved around, I was able to have friends that were like from Vietnam. I was able to have friends that were like from different cultures and different things and be able to kind of learn how their cultures operate and just celebrate their cultures, right? I just want our culture, black culture, to be celebrated and respected. That's pretty much it. Like just like I respect other people's cultures and what their upbringings are, I want the same thing respect, right? So to conclude this video, include everything, it's kind of like Juneteenth's coming up, right? That's what y'all have fun. I know they got activities wherever you are in. Just have fun. Remember how, like, hey, we were finally, everybody was finally free. They were notified, they were finally free, and that's what's more. That's what's important. You know, that's what's really most important. And then the 13th Amendment, and I know like life, and, it's other things like Jim Crow and redlining and like all these things in history that were used to hold us back, hold black people back. But I think now We just need to come together and be strong and just work our way through the system that's built and then be the best version of ourselves and to leave wealth to our kids and our families and generations on so when our next generation could be in a better place than we were. You know. I was born in the 80s, 90s, raised what I'm saying? Like y'all know what I'm talking about, right? But, you know, emancipation, at the end of the day, Emancipation Proclamation, right? It led the way, right, to get us to Juneteenth, right? It led us to get to that point, and that's what's the point, us being free and not enslaved, and even though it was so many years of enslavement, even though like slavery is like, around a little bit less than 200 years ago, like 190 some years ago, whatever, it's not too far, right? It's not too far, right? Probably had, know, great grandparents that were slaves. Like I think four greats, maybe five greats that were literally slaves, being free slaves, you know, growing up in Jim Crow, being part of Red Line, drafting Vietnam, all of these things that have race in them, and how at one point being in the military, like they, you know, most of black people were cooks and all this stuff like that. They didn't really have, the higher officer things. Like they had black officers and stuff like that. I'm not saying they didn't, but that was like rare and few. And you got to work hard. They just put you in an all color division or all whatever the case may be, and that's how you kind of got the Reagan or whatever. But that's a whole another conversation, right? But let's understand. At the end of the day, slave people was free, officially free. And let's just, like I said, go out, engage, go out to these local celebrations, right? Educate yourself more, on the subject, and just grow, right? Put yourself in the comments. Hey, like, share, ring the bell, put in the comments. Say, hey man, you missed this part, or you missed this part, or maybe I understand this. Can you repeat this or whatever? Maybe I'll do another video or whatever case may be later on. Or, I might do something about, just off the emancipation. Or maybe I might just do something about red about it. Like I might break some of that stuff down. Stuff I need to learn in history, but that sometimes we just take for granted. We don't think about. I appreciate y'all, man. I appreciate everybody here, man. Please like, share, all of that good stuff, man. Rock with me or whatever. Hope you enjoy this video. But please like, share, subscribe, man. Let's ride together. Peace.